Tips Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories in public safety news. Here's your host, Fletch, with today's tips.
Hey, it's Fletch. Welcome to Tips Today in Public Safety. This week, we're going to take on one of the biggest questions facing the 911 community. How do we pay for next generation 911, migrate the network, and most importantly, know when the job is finally finished? The number we can't ignore. Let's begin with the number. In April, the NTIA, the National Telecom Industry Alliance, released a national cost study where they estimated that completing the transition is going to require another $5.8 billion to $9.7 billion over the next 7 years. Now, today, about $4.5 billion has already been invested, and that money's come from 911 fees and state and local funding. Now, that might seem like a lot of money, but actually, that remaining estimate is about 30 to 40% lower than the national estimate that was published back in 2018. Now, that sounds like a lot of good news, and in fact, it is. But it doesn't mean that the funding problem is disappearing. What it means is the economics are changing. You see, we're no longer talking about buying new boxes, putting them in, and then depreciating the equipment over time. Next generation 911 is increasingly being delivered like any modern service, through software, cloud services, managed networks, and subscription-based platforms. That means the initial cost may be lower, but the recurring obligation can be higher, and it never simply goes away after time. So the real question becomes no longer, can we afford to build NG911? The question becomes, can we afford to operate it and sustain it every year after that? Capital expense to operating commitment. For decades, public safety technology has often been funded like a construction project. An agency gets a grant or an appropriation, purchases the equipment, completes the installation, and then begins planning for the next refresh cycle. But today, cloud and as-a-service models change that conversation. Lower upfront costs can look very attractive in a budget line, but the service now becomes a continuing operational expense. Connectivity, cybersecurity, logging, meeting, monitoring, location services, call handling, data storage, redundancy maintenance, and vendor support all have to remain funded. Then we need to add in the transition period, because most jurisdictions are not going to be able to turn off their legacy network the very same day that the EZNet becomes available. No, they're going to need to maintain legacy, selective routing, any-alley services, gateway circuits, contracts, and technical support while that new network is being tested, populated, and put into service. In other words, some agencies are going to temporarily pay for two worlds at the same time. It's not like buying a refrigerator where you wheel out the old one and wheel in the new. But that overlap isn't waste. It's actually just part of protecting service continuity and common with advanced technology and communications. But you've got to identify that in the financial plan before that migration begins. If you fund only the visual new technology and ignore the rest of the transition, then you haven't funded the entire project. Who owns the obligation? Unfortunately, today there's no dedicated federal 911 grant program that's open for applications. Agencies are forced to work with a patchwork of 911 fees, state appropriations, local budgets, and various federal programs that may support a piece of the work, but not the whole thing. And that creates a policy decision. Should future funding actually reward states that moved early? Should it focus on jurisdictions that are still behind? Maybe federal support only pays for implementation. Or should it help paying with the recurring service costs? And how do we protect those smaller communities with smaller tax bases from becoming permanent islands in a national system? NG911 was designed to be interoperable. So a call and its associated data won't lose value because it crosses a county line, or a state line, or a financial line. But that means the weakest connection could affect the larger system. So this is my takeaway for today. NG911 is not simply a technology purchase. No, it's a long-term public safety service obligation. Before you approve the architecture, you've got to make sure someone's modeled the full life cycle. and that includes transition, dual operation, and cybersecurity training, testing, and establishing the point where the legacy costs can finally be retired. Coming up on Wednesday, we're going to go inside the transition period because migration is not a single cutover. No, it's a carefully managed journey between two networks, and it may not happen overnight. I'm Fletch, and this is Tips Today in Public Safety. I'll see you on Wednesday at 8 a.m. right here on 911tips.com. Hey, it's Fletch. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really hope you learned something new. Please remember to like and subscribe so you'll be notified of all of our new episodes. Tips publishes 3 times each week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern. You can also listen to or read my blogs and other long-form content at fletch.tv, and my professional website with all my contact information is at fletch911.com. Once again, thanks so much for spending some time with me, and if you're in public safety, as always, thanks for what you do every single day. We'll catch you later. Take care.
You've been listening to Tips Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Hosted by Fletch and available every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Catch past episodes on 911tips.com. I am Spider Harrison, the official 911 voiceover dude. No small animals were harmed in the making of this podcast. However, it may contain peanuts, or peanuts may have been used in its production. This content is void where prohibited or expressly forbidden by law. And by the way, I said peanuts.